we were talking earlier and you were explaining to me demonic obsession.
Right.
And you made this comment that potentially 1 out of every 4 Americans are experiencing demonic obsession. What is demonic obsession? How is that different from other forms of demonic activity or influence?
Right. First of all, we're all tempted by Satan. All of us. We call that Satan's ordinary thing, or ordinary work. The extraordinary one, but actually in some ways it's not that extraordinary, because and other exorcists have said this, and I agree with them, that a good 25%, probably more, of Americans at some point in their life will experience demonic obsessions. That's when the demons hit your brain and they do all sorts of things. For example, one religious superior said in his community, they're meeting for every 2 years, the community meets and discusses their business and makes resolutions. So, but there was this spirit in the room of this conflict and division that is just, he couldn't explain it. He said, "What?" He said, "What's going on here?" And the guy goes, we're going to stop. We're going to say a little deliverance prayer and pray for the guidance of the Holy Spirit. The whole room changed. It was demonic obsessions.
Meaning people were just kind of trying to pick each other apart,
division.
Argue about nothing.
That's one thing that a hallmark of Satan's presence, and families too, by the way, that Satan will try to divide families. I think husbands and wives really need to be careful about that. He wants to break apart your relationship. And there are certainly lots of little normal human things. You live with your husband. Neither of you are perfect.
He's perfect. He almost is, but yeah.
Well, how it goes.
We're both imperfect.
So, there's going to be some rubs.
Yeah.
And that'd be normal. But the difference between, by the way, ever since I got beat up by demons, whatever, I carry my rosary beads I sleep with them. You can sleep with your rosary beads, by the way, right?
Have you been beat up since?
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that. I know there's so many directions I want to go. I'll let you,
Okay.
You're on a very good track here about what the devil wants to do to divide.
Yeah. So what happens is he wants to break apart your relationship. And you'll have the normal kind of fights, and that's normal. But then sometimes, for some reason, there is this animosity.
Resentment.
It sticks. And then you start thinking things which are actually not true. My husband's thinking this. He's doing this. That's why he did this, because he when those distorted ideas come into your brain and you start feeling this, it's probably demonic. And so what happens is when you sit down with your husband and say, let's have an honest conversation, you find out he wasn't thinking that at all. That was just in your head. Well, demons do that a lot. And so and we find in our team, by the way, he hates our work, obviously. And so he tries to destroy our St. Michael Center all the time, which is why we need to have good communication, good discussion. And I find myself not uncommonly thinking these nutso thoughts. And I talked to one of the other priests or one of the people, and it was not even true.
How do you know what is, this is demonic? Would that be, what would you classify all this? Demonic divisiveness, temptation, obsession? What name would you give it?
I would call when he's going after what you're thinking in your brains and that sort of thing. Demonic, we call them demonic obsessions.
So thoughts that are placed in your mind by the devil.
Or ramped up.
Ramped up in your mind.
For example, we all have temptations against chastity. Welcome to human race. But sometimes they come at you with a torrent. It's kind of like you say, "Where'd that come from?" Guess what? So the important thing about why that's important to recognize it, first of all, so you can take a deep breath and say, "Okay, my husband doesn't hate me." This is just nuts, the idea.
Or fears about your kids. We were talking about that earlier.
Fears about your kids.
Like, are they going to be okay? Are they safe? All of this.
And then what you can say is, that thought in my brain, I rebuke it. I reject it. I renounce it. I cast it out. I trust in Jesus. We call those the 3 R's. I renounce it. I reject it. I rebuke it. And I cast it out. Now, there are other kinds of thoughts too. For example, suicidality. When we have someone who's possessed, they will always, at some point, be tempted strongly to commit suicide. That's one of Satan's end games. He wants you to kill yourself. Why? Because he can't kill you. Satan can, not directly, because he did kill me, right? But so he can't kill you directly, but so he wants you to kill yourself, or or your husband, whatever. So that's a different issue, right? And so he wants people to kill themselves, and so they'll always be tempted. And these thoughts will come in pretty strong. We've got a woman right now I'm working with, and she's got a demonic obsession pretty strongly. When she goes into this demonic mode, the demonic obsessions, the temptations against suicide are very powerful, and they're not normal. In other words, there are normal temptations for suicide and that sort of thing in a depressed person, for example. But this is something a horse of a different color.
How do you tell what is normal? Well, let's do suicide as an example. Then I've got another example I want to ask you about. When there is a temptation to suicide because of depression, a depressive episode, or long-term depression, or some other mental health issue, or it's a demonic influence of some kind.
As I tell people when training psychologists, that if you're depressed enough, you will consider suicide. You always will. It doesn't mean you'll do it. And the Catholic faith, by the way, is a real help not to do it. You might feel like doing it. You might think about doing it, but your faith helps to stop and say, no, not a good idea. Good. That's good. But sometimes these thoughts take on an intensity and come out of the blue, which are quite striking. And in the case of this woman, it's true. And what Satan does is he takes a little bit. She has some suicidal depression in her background, but when the demons hit, it's unbelievable how strong it hits her. And then, for example, we'll try to get her to pray. We'll say, I want you, I renounce, I rebuke, I reject the demons of suicidality. She can't even say it. She's experienced this abhorrence to that and this repulsiveness. Where'd that come from? It comes from Satan.
For someone who is tempted to even suicidality because of the evil one, would that be a case of possession, or could that just be obsession? The devil influencing thoughts.
It could be either. I mean, some people who are possessed will also have demonic obsessions, but I think most people have demonic obsessions and are not fully possessed. And I just was listening to a friend of mine, an exorcist, the other day, and he was saying that he thinks a lot of the suicides in this world are partly a result of Satan's influence, which is sad. People don't realize it. What's happening is like day after day, Satan is pounding away at you. Commit suicide, take your life, commit suicide. And they don't realize where that voice is coming from.
So would you recommend to anybody who either has experienced suicidality or has a loved one or someone that they know who experiences suicidality, that alongside mental health interventions, love of the community, family, whatever, that they be seen by an exorcist?
Not necessarily. I mean, obviously, as you say, Lila, the first thing you do is you see your psychiatrist, see your psychologist. And that's always true when it comes to these kinds of afflictions. The first thing we do is we apply the normal therapeutic means. See your medical doctor, see your psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever. Try all those things. But when those things are not enough, and when they fail, but then you'll still want to see some signs of the demonic. When they give me a new case and say, well, we think this is, I say, okay, I can't do a solemn exorcism until I see the presence of a demonic thing. I mean, it's the rite says that. You have to be subjectively certain that a demon is present before you can do a solemn exorcism. So I'm not only going to want to see some sort of affliction and some trauma or whatever, but I want to see the sign of a demonic presence. And after about 18, 20 years, you recognize it.